If you've worked in restoration for any length of time, you've probably noticed that insurance claims feel different than they did a decade ago, or maybe just 5 years ago. Now, there are more reviews, more documentation, more scrutiny, more technology, and often fewer direct conversations with the people making decisions. In this episode, we'll look beyond the frustration and examine what solutions look like for restoration contractors, adjusters, carriers, and policyholders moving forward. And to do this, I'm pleased to welcome a first time guest, Heather Minnick from Violan Management Associates. Heather, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here.
Glad to have you. Well, since you're a first time guest, Heather, we don't know much about you. Introduce
Absolutely.
yourself. Talk about.
I got my start in healthcare, truly. The original plan was to go to college and get the degree and do the whole thing. I spent enough time in healthcare and, got a little bit jaded actually about a lot of the insurance issues. And it sort of broke my heart a little bit and was a lot of the reason that I actually ended up leaving healthcare, like a lot of other people. So I have the fancy degree and all of that, but I wanted to really help people. And you get in a place in healthcare where you feel helpless and there's not much you can do in that space. So I decided to pivot and everyone always told me, you should be in sales. You should be in sales. Why aren't you in sales? And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why. So I decided to kind of look into that. And I said, well, I want to help people. So wherever I can land that's still being able to help people, but also maybe exploring some of my natural talents. So I landed with a digital marketing company that was based out of Tampa. And that's sort of what brought me into this world, if you will. And Violan found me not too long after that. So, and I'm very, very, very happy that they found me because it felt like sort of everything clicked at that moment. Like this is where I can do what I want to do, which is help people and make a difference, but also kind of capitalize on the fact that I love to talk to people and I love to be, people facing. So that is how I ended up at Violand.
I mean, one of my questions when you started talking was healthcare to restoration. That's a different world. But as you continue speaking, I can kind of see the puzzles coming together.
Yeah, it's funny because I also was like, two very different things.
Right,
The
right.
more that I talk to people and the more that I get to know everyone in this industry and the more that I hear about all of the frustrations, I guess, really resonated with me because I've seen it on the healthcare side. I mean, the same exact thing that is happening now in the restoration industry happened to the healthcare system already 20 years ago. And now we're seeing kind of the same thing. And I was put in that position where I was on the front lines when I was working at a rehab hospital, a physical rehab hospital. So say you had a heart attack or broke your hip or something, that's the place that you would end up and I would be there to help you. And what really killed me was I saw that the people that truly suffered through these insurance claims and the people that fell through the cracks were really the patient, and the patient really was the one that was suffering. And in my mind, it's the same thing with the homeowner, right? If we don't adapt to this new system and help the homeowner understand, there's a potential they fall through the cracks as well, just like, a patient would in the healthcare system if we're not careful.
It makes sense. Totally. No matter what you're doing, you're helping someone recover from a situation. And so I think your experience in healthcare might really help this industry. So I look forward to today's interview because we're going to talk about that and get your expertise. I know you wrote an article in Clean Facts already, somewhat about this topic, but I have a few other questions to dig into it deeper. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, so here's my first big question. Many contractors say the biggest change isn't necessarily pricing. It's the growing complexity of the claims process, and you talked about that. What do you believe has fundamentally changed in the insurance industry over the past decade? I know you haven't been here that long, but you've talked to people, but that has made claims feel more difficult for everyone involved.
The biggest change is definitely the standardization. I mean, that is exactly what I saw in healthcare. It starts from the top. They say we need to control cost. It trickles down to everyone else. So everyone on that side is, on the carrier side, the adjuster side, they're doing a job just like we are, right? So the biggest change is very much standardization. Now, if you understand that, then it makes more sense. I think a lot of restorers and people in the home service industry as a whole, we sort of attach this emotional aspect of it because I mean you feel sort of like you're under attack, right? And I would like to first validate everyone because you're not imagining this. It is much harder now, but it is not harder because of a issue with the restorer. It's not harder because we want the restorer to suffer or whatever. It's harder because there's a business and that business is trying to control that cost and they're doing that any way that they can. So the way that they do that is through the standardization of these claims and trying to figure out where they can cut costs as well. So I think that is the biggest change that people are feeling. And it might feel like I said, you feel like there's a lot of pressure. You might feel like you're under attack a little bit. That's the best way I can describe it. You feel like you have to have your defenses up. And I just want everyone to know that, you're absolutely valid in feeling that way because it is difficult and it means that you genuinely take pride in your craft, and that's phenomenal. But yeah, the biggest change is definitely, it's just a company at the top that needs to standardize their processes and control their costs. And you're just feeling the effects of it.
Okay, good information. And you're right. Your background in healthcare and what you saw there over the years will play into this. So my follow-up question to that is about technology. We know that's a big part of our industry now, and technology is supposed to make claims faster and more efficient. That's what everyone wants. Yet many are saying, Heather, that adds new layers of review and bureaucracy. So talk about that. What do you see as a solution? How can the industry strike a better balance between data-driven oversight and practical decision making in the field?
Yeah, I think any introduction of technology to an industry is going to rub people the wrong way always because any change that comes about, especially with, AI and everything, it's a touchy subject for everyone. So, I think anytime we introduce technology, there's going to be a learning curve and there's going to be people that are not excited about it, and that's fine. I think that there is absolutely a balance, but what needs to happen first is just a fundamental understanding. So, and the best way I can kind of compare that is um, what we did in healthcare when this happened was there really was no, process to this. What we did was we all, providers all got together and we said, hey, if you have a patient that needs this thing specifically to recover properly, this is the exact word that you have to say to the insurance company, right? This is the exact thing that you have to tell them in order for that to move along. And that was just us communicating with each other, right? I do think that there's a balance with technology, but I don't think that it's a leave it to AI. I don't think it's a set it and forget it type of technology. I think they're absolutely just like there should still be the human aspect of those claims. There still needs to be someone kind of moving through these things and making sure everything is correct, Technology should be definitely a resource, not a solution.
What you just said a minute ago about you have to say this exact thing to get something done is exactly what we see
Oh,
in
yeah.
documentation and what's happening. So how sad is that? That's,
If I wanted to, Jeff, I could probably make you shed a tear from some stories that
oh, I
that
bet.
I have
I
from
bet.
healthcare. But even like, for example, Exactimate. Exactimate is the big one that everyone knows, right?
Hmm.
Exactimate came out probably about 20 years ago when the insurance companies, and this is my restoration side, I did the research here. About 20 years ago, the insurance companies did similar to what they're doing now, which is hire a third party administrator to come in and, move through those claims and do that. Um, and that's when Xactimate was born, right? And so we use that, and that's been helpful to us, right? We don't hate Xactimate. We all like Xactimate, just have to know how to use it properly, right? So, but it is the exact same. I mean, and it all comes down to, like I said, just the standardization of it. Once you figure out that that is really what it is, and then you just have to lean on your people around you and figure out what's working for you. What's that exact, sentence that I have to say to this adjuster to make sure that we get what we need. It's a little more nuanced with restoration because I have heard quite a few different avenues of um, repairing a house or drying a house. But yeah, I digress with that.
No, that's it's good. And I'm sure as you spend more time in this industry, you're going to see more correlations and comparisons to share that we've already talked about today. But let's move into solutions and maybe something that those watching our program can embrace and make better. And it's about trust. We know that trust has always been a critical part of the relationship between contractors, adjusters, carriers, and policyholders. I'm sure trust played a big part of your in your career with healthcare. You have to have that factor of trust with everyone involved. So, as we talked about, as processes become more automated and standardized, what do you think, Heather, can the industry do, the stakeholders do to rebuild or build up that trust and improve collaboration without sacrificing accountability?
I love that question. I love the without sacrificing accountability because that part's big. Yeah, and what's interesting when I was doing research for this, I learned that nurses and doctors are consistently rated amongst the most trustworthy of jobs. So people just, a doctor walks in and you just, for the most part, outright trust them, right? And if you are looking at where restorers are on that list, it is very far from the top. So I think it is extremely important. And I think what really is going to differentiate um, people and companies during this time is don't forget that this is very much a human thing that's happening. And again, the best way I can make this comparison is think of the homeowner as your patient, right? You're going in, you are assessing, you're diagnosing, right? And this is where I really shined in healthcare and what made me kind of realize that the people aspect of it is my gift because I had that where I was able to come in and just sit with them and look them eye to eye and say, tell me what's going on, right? Granted, I know that, the process for claims in the restoration industry is a little bit different than that. But my point being, treat the homeowner as if they were a patient, right? Treat them as if they were your family member that was going through a loss. A lot of it is they just want to be heard. A lot of it is they're just frustrated. They're just scared. They have no idea what's going on. So many people are calling them and they're like, I don't even know who to trust, right? I think it's really taking the time to sit with that homeowner, educate them on not just, hey, you should trust me and this is why. Educate them on what's going on in the industry as a whole. Hey, listen, the adjusters have a job to do. We also have a job to do, but we work for you, right? That is where our contract comes in. So, and just have that line of communication open and just be upfront with them as much as possible. And I would say, yeah. maybe take a lesson from what do they call that? Bedside manner.
No, that's exactly right. The trouble is when you go to the hospital now, you probably don't even see a doctor for a long time. But when you deal with people, that bedside manner matters. And so in the this industry, restoration, fixing things, taking care of people, that's important. One more question. I'm just thinking, I think I know what your answer is going to be. Looking ahead, maybe 5 years or so, 10 years. Do you expect insurance claim handling to become even more structured and automated, technology driven? Do you see that?
I do, I do. And I will again use the comparison that I know, right? Um, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, sorry, when the healthcare industry rolled out these initiatives, they first piloted it in a couple states, and then it was a full-on act that moved forward. And now that is the standard. You have to, like I said, really be on top of it. You have to have, and I'm going to use the word advocate, and I'm going to use that very carefully here. In the healthcare world, you must advocate for the patient. You must, because if not, and again, if you don't have that exact code of things or that right sentence that explains, I need this because of this, your claim will get lost. And that patient, goes home without a piece of equipment that they truly need or whatever it is. And in other cases, and in much more serious cases, people truly fall through the cracks. And I don't think it's going to go away. I think technology is absolutely going to standardize a little bit more. But I don't think that I think right now we're in a tough spot. We're in a little bit of a growing pain here because we're sort of in the middle of them trying to implement this standardization and figure out how that's going to work with the new technology that we have. But I think a lot of carriers are also seeing that they can't remove that human component. There's truly too many moving parts. And again, like these people are going through a loss, they're going through something severe. When you take that human component away, you're going to make a lot of people upset. They're already very upset. They're already going through a lot. So I would say don't anticipate that they're going to roll back any of the technology or standardization. I would say that they probably are going to double down because it works for them as a business model, right? And that's what they want is to run their business smoothly. I think the biggest asset we will have as an industry is truly each other. The same way that in healthcare, I would, I'll give you an example. My dad had a stroke my freshman year of high school. This is what got me into healthcare to begin with. So I dealt with a lot of stroke patients at the rehab facility, right? My mom, bless her heart, went through so much with these insurance companies. If you ever meet my mom, Jeff, she's a saint and an angel. She's so sweet. But she had to get, in her words, a little mean with these insurance companies, and she hated it. But I mean, there were plenty of times where I would call her from the hospital and say, "Hey, I have a patient, just had a stroke, looking to go home." And I would give her the full rundown, right? This is, what they're looking for. And she would tell me exactly, okay, she'd say, "You have a pen?" And she would have me write down, "You need to tell the insurance company that they need this. You're not releasing without this, blah, blah, blah." I mean, just down to the exact, you know, and it was that serious, right? Because if not, it's not like restoration where I know a lot of people are struggling because they're kind of just cutting checks and completely cutting out the middleman there. And in the healthcare system, it's not that way. They just deny your claim. They just deny the whole thing. There's no, they say you can have this and this, but you can't have any of this stuff, And there's not a, you can fight it, but there's no help. You don't have an adjuster, right? You have, if you want to sit on the phone at your house with whoever, then you can fight that battle. And a lot of people get tired and stop fighting it and they just accept it, right? So I think I think the biggest thing that we can lean on with this is each other and not forgetting that the human part of this is really truly what's important, right? The human part of it is what we need to focus on, and we need to remember that yes, we are trying to do a job and we're trying to get a job done and we're trying to get paid for that job, absolutely, and we should want that because that's what's fair. But also remember that the homeowner is your patient, right? The homeowner is the one that is going to suffer through all this. Yes, you're going to have a frustrating conversation and it's going to be annoying to you, but truthfully, the homeowner is who has to live with whatever the insurance company decides. So I don't think that technology is going away anytime soon, but I do believe that if we keep advocating in the restoration industry, for the homeowner, I think that we'll find a happy medium of technology being used to help us move through these claims maybe faster, but there should absolutely still be a human component to the review of those claims.
So, if I hear you right, there's nothing we can do about where things are going except embrace it. But ourselves as people, business owners, managers, even techs in the field, it's up to them to have that bedside manner. Is that what I'm hearing?
Absolutely. You have to think, say you walk into my house after a storm. As the homeowner, as the patient, I know nothing about what's going on in the industry, right? I have no idea. If you come in and you're already frustrated, all I'm seeing is that you're frustrated. I don't know why, right? People truly want to know the reason behind things. And I am always of the belief that if you are upfront and you are honest, that is what is going to build trust. So I would suggest, and we've even talked about internally, Violand, with our clients, creating a sort of one pager for the homeowner, that says, hey, this is what's going on. You're going to hear us talk about this and that, and this is why, right? And just educating them because I'll tell you what, when my dad had a stroke, there was no one there to say, you have to say this, you have to talk to this person, and make sure you don't do that. There was none of that. We had to figure it out. We just had to figure it out. So if you come in to that moment and sit with them and say, hey, listen, I know that this sucks. You don't want me here right now, right? I completely understand that. And I know that this process is going to suck. But I want to do a good job here and I want you to be happy. And in order for me to do that, I think it's important that X, Y, and Z, this is what's going on in the industry. And this is what I'm going to do. This is what our company is going to do in order to keep your best interest in mind. And if they know that, you're going to be the first person that they call. They're not going to call the insurance company. Once you kind of explain to them, and it's not a difficult thing to understand because again, just compare it to healthcare, right? Everyone hears that and they understand immediately. They think healthcare system and they're like, oh, like it's a headache, right? It's the same thing. You know, you're not calling your insurance, your healthcare insurance provider when you're sick. You're calling your doctor. Two different things there, right? In this situation, the restorers are the doctors, right? You come in, you diagnose, you assess, and more importantly, just be a human with that person for a moment and just sit with them. And that I think will truly go a very, very long way. And I think that that will sort of change the perspective of home service companies as a whole and maybe get us up towards that doctor trust level.
I like it. And the difference is we go to our doctors all the time. We don't ever want to have to call a restoration company. So, but
Right.
it will happen from time to time. So, no, good analogies and good examples, Heather. Appreciate your time today. We'll have to do a follow-up on this. This is a big issue.